Having groups on D2L can be really useful for a number of reasons. You might use it to section off parts of the discussion, you might use it to allocate marking, or you might use it to get students to work in those particular groups. There's two ways that you can go about making groups. The first is that you can make groups randomly, so that students are allocated by the number of people that you want in a group or the number of groups that you want, or they can be allocated via their tutorial allocation, i.e. via STAR. I'm going to take you through both of these steps. If you're interested in getting students into tutorial groups, then you need to fill out an Excel spreadsheet and send it off to Hadju, and Hadju will actually make the groups for you, which is really nice and easy. So first off, I thought that I would show you how to do that, and then I would show you how to make kind of more random groups. So first things first is that you need to actually come onto STAR and get into your the subject that you're managing. So I'm just in here in health behaviour, and what we want to do is make a custom report on the tutorials so that we can get every student listed in the class that they've actually been allocated. So first off, under all these tut groups here, I'm just going to select all of them, and then I'm going to click on custom report. Now in custom report we only need two things. The first one is student email address, and that's because students on D2L are allocated via their username into a group as their main identifier. And then we also want a strange one called activity code, which actually matches up to the tutorial code number. So for example, if you have 10 tutorials, they will be numbered 1 to 10, and that's how you're allocating them into a group. So we're just going to click Get Report. And the file that you will get looks like this. And we just need to make some really basic quick changes to it before we send it off to Hadju. So we're just going to insert a column where we're going to say what kind of role we want the person to have. And in this case, it's going to be student. So I'm just going to drag that all the way down. And then we also want another column at the front just to allow us to say what we want to happen, which is we want them to be enrolled into that group. So really quick and easy. And then lastly, what we actually want here is not their email address, but their username. And so in order to get their username, we actually have to get rid of that end of the address, that @deakin.edu.au, which is really easily done. So I'm just going to come up here and do find replace. And you can see how I've put in @deakin.edu, and we're going to replace all with nothing. So you'll see that it just leaves me with the username. And I'm just going to change this heading to group, and that's essentially done. So what we need to do next is actually email this to Hadju. Remember that is hadu@deakin.edu.au, and they'll be able to make these groups for you and allocate students as per their tutorial. The second way that you can do it is to actually go onto D2L yourself and make your own groups. Now, I would probably only recommend doing this if you just want random groups made, and not if you want students to be allocated as per their tutorial. So what you need to do is come to your home page, click Setup, click on Groups, and you can see that I already have my tutorial groups here, but we're going to make a new category and call it New Groups. And then we have several options of what type of group that we would like. Now, the first type is that you just say you want 10 groups, for example. So you specify the number of groups, and no one is automatically enrolled into those groups. You actually manually have to do that. Now, I probably wouldn't recommend this because it actually means you individually have to go to each student and allocate them to a group, which can be really time consuming. What I would recommend is one of the next two options, which is having groups of a specific number of students or having a specific number of groups. And this is all auto-enrolled. So Once you make the groups of say 25, it will automatically populate those groups with 25 students each from your class list. The third type of group that you can have is self-enrollment. So the same idea that you can say I want 20 groups and students can self-enroll to that, or you can say you want groups of 25 and students can self-enroll to that. I have used this function before and I probably really wouldn't recommend it unless it's totally necessary that you want them to choose their own groups. The reason that I say this is because students actually can't move or unallocate themselves from a group once allocated. So they might put themselves in group 2 and then a couple of days later think, oh, I should be in group 6. And the only way they can move is if they email you and ask you to move them. So it can kind of increase the amount of admin that you have to do if you're constantly moving people around in different groups. So once you select what you would like, so I'm going to pick groups of, and I'm going to specify 25 students per group, you just can either randomize users and groups, which that's fine to have ticked, and probably auto-enroll new users, particularly if you're doing this at the start of the trimester where you might have some latecomers. And then you just press save, and once you press save, it will make as many groups as it takes to allocate all members into groups of 25. So those are the two options of either making it as per your STAR tutorial allocations and sending the Excel spreadsheet to Hadju. And Hadju are really great at making up those groups. They do recommend kind of waiting till your groups settle down on STAR, perhaps in week 2, before making the groups, but of course they can do it earlier if it's necessary. And the other option is to do this manual version where this is probably better if you just want to randomly allocate people to groups, and it only takes about 5 minutes.